So when we're showing up, most people don't know that we're what we're there for.
We don't wear these shirts to that.
Yeah.
We come in plain clothes.
Right.
These are just for,
Networking.
marketing. Yeah, networking.
And it's not like we're trying to be like, super secretive, but
You're
just
kind of like the Men in Black. Like when these guys show up, everything's getting erased.
we got the thing too, right?
Yeah.
Your memory.
Welcome to this episode of Mission Control. This is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands. I'm very excited to share a special team here that we have today and introduce them. We have Perun and Rishi Patel, co-founders of National E-Waste Services. Please welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, man, this is quite interesting. The company that you guys have, it is secure data destruction. I mean, that is a serious topic that we're going to cover today because I think a lot of people just leave their data out there randomly for others to find and discover and kind of do evil things with it, basically.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we're trying to stop from happening, We've talked about it, off air about how data is the new currency.
Yeah.
And it's kind of scary when you think about what people are willing to pay to obtain that data.
Yeah, can't wait to learn more. And I also want to introduce a different person that we have on the soundboard today than normal. Not our usual Kevin, but we have our Director of Web Development. Please welcome Jorge Pezo Candelario.
The man with the plan who's launching your brand.
Wow. So you guys have a
He's
quick
got
line
that
like
down. Oh, man. I need to get one now.
We got to work on our taglines.
We'll talk after.
I switch it up every week or every episode just because it's so, I got to keep people on their toes.
Yeah, it's the hook that gets people listening to Mission Control because they just want to know what will Jorge say next. It's just, you got to have those. It's part of the brand.
Absolutely.
Sound bites are the next new version of currency.
Exactly. So we're going to talk about safely destroying data today. How do you do it, but also why it's so important. And I'm sure you guys have some nightmare stories. I mean, we were starting to talk about this whole printer thing. Maybe dive into that. Tell us what happened.
Yeah. So when you think about technology today, everything captures data, right? Your refrigerator that will keep track of what you're low on and tell you, hey, to your phone, you need to order this. So think about the printers in companies, right? Somebody has to log in. It stores that information that they're about to print. Well, sometimes that data doesn't just go away, right? That may be in there. So we were talking with a couple of tech guys. We're in the Tide Council, right? And one of the guys from the council was explaining to us, he goes, there was this company that they got hacked because they were selling their printers and they were, these aren't cheap printers that you're just going to walk in and buy at Walmart,
the giant laser
giant
copy printers
with big rips and hard drives and everything.
Yeah. So they were getting sold at auction and they got bid on and somebody ended up hacking in and getting information that could potentially harm them or their clients. So, that's just
like
an example.
Bank account numbers and who knows what.
Who knows what goes
Socials.
through it, right? Think about it.
It's a data breach, essentially, but for sale.
Yeah. I mean, everything you print from your printer, right? It's stored that information for a period of time.
Wow. And even when people think they've erased something, it's really not gone, right? Because we've got forensic, people that can retrieve data, even though it's like, you think it's a clean drive, but is it ever really wiped?
Yeah. And that was something we went down the research rabbit hole, right? Because we'll get into it a little later, but we started this company a couple of years ago. We did a lot of R&D. And, these hard drives that we have here that are in your computer store data, right? And there are companies that will wipe the data. But there's also, and he can speak to it more.
There's plenty of companies out there for, call it $600. You just send them whatever broken device you have. They'll recover everything for you.
We could use that before.
well, that's exactly what I want people to know about when they think about when they delete something from any device. The way that it works is that technically the drive isn't deleted. You're just telling it to forget. That's the difference.
Quote unquote.
Exactly.
You're
so
telling it to forget it has the data inside.
exactly.
But somebody else could remind it that it has the data inside.
The way that we
quote
kind
unquote.
of the way that we kind of illustrate data to people, or the way that they think of it, is they think of it like a suitcase, and I can fit so much data in there, which is my pictures or my documents or whatever.
Right.
It is. But that's just to kind of help you understand it a little bit more. But really, it's just that it's a location on the device that is being remembered. When you delete it, you just tell it to forget. But you can have that forensic team go in there and have that, that deep dive session where they're able to pull those things out of it. So things that you think are removed.
So what really happens when you drag something into the little trash can icon and then you hit empty trash? Like what is it just making room for something to be like overwritten, or is it really getting rid of it? What happens?
So don't think of it so much as it's being deleted or overwritten. Think of it as it's being put in a neglect file. Just
it's still there.
Neglect it. Yeah.
A neglect file, kind of like I won't say like a stepchild or something. Somebody that's like put in the corner. It's still there. It's just you're not paying any attention to it.
There you go.
Oh,
Takes
man.
up just a little bit of room.
Yeah, but so how many millions of machines or computers or devices are just kind of being discarded, and then what typically happens? Even if you're saying like if somebody takes something to a dump, you could still grab it and get that person's like private information or bank account information, that kind of stuff
with extreme ease.
Wow.
We won't go into how, because we're not.
So there's probably bad guys that are
out
out there scouring like landfills for computers.
Landfills, you go to your local transfer station,
Yeah,
and a lot of people drop it there, right? Because they have a special spot that they say put your electronics over here.
yeah.
And that's fine that's what they're doing, but at the end of the day, nobody's going in and doing what we're doing to remove the ability to ever retain that or reclaim that data, right? So if somebody else walked in, a bad guy said, "Oh, I'm going to go over there. Nobody's going to stop him from pulling off something from the computer, right? So if he went in and grabbed every hard drive and left the computers there, they're not there to police that.
You won't even bat an eye.
Right.
No, they'll be like, this guy's trying to scavenge precious metals or something random.
Yeah, pretty much. And then some people will think, oh, well, let me take it. And I've got a couple of friends that have either tried to beat this thing up or break it. And even that, now don't get me wrong, there's scratches like that one that I have there. It'll maybe make it harder. But talking about forensics, right? There are people now, they have to spend a lot of money.
Right.
So maybe not the bad guys as much, but maybe if you were trying to hide something you didn't want somebody to
If
find.
you thought there was something of value in there, you'd put in it'd be worth the investment.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's not as big of an investment as you might think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about that. Now, the obvious is computers, but in being in marketing, those first-time listeners out there, PD is, we're an agency first, and we help companies launch, and we provide a lot of marketing services, and a big aspect of it is capturing the data, their demographic. Is it your target audience? Do you have their email? You can't buy something online nowadays and not give up your contact information for that extra 10% off. It's like data is the currency. But the obvious is the computers are storing your data. What other devices that we use every day are capturing?
Well, we did this in another presentation. Think about cell phones, right? How many people?
That's your computer, right? In your pocket.
But how many people have a cell
pocket.
phone sitting in a drawer? 10 cell phones sitting
Right,
in a drawer
right.
because they don't know what to do with it. And sure, there's the companies that'll say, we'll pay you for your old cell phones. I'm not going to speak to those companies, but chances are they're trying to mine data. Right? Because if they can get your contacts, well, now they just got a whole list they can sell to a company. If they got your email and some other information, again, they have information. That
So
they're
when
gonna be
you
able to
go to
sell.
like, I've been at the, Apple's good for this. Like right when their new model comes out, mysteriously your current phone doesn't work anymore. so you go into the Apple store. But I've seen them transfer that data and then erase the old one, and then they like, is it not being erased really?
I mean,
That's the thing. The data. That's why every hard drive has basically a shelf life. like how many miles do you put on? It's like a car, right?
Yeah.
Once you put 300,000 miles on a car, you don't have a lot of life left in it. Every drive has how many times you can read and write to it.
Okay.
Because that's exactly it. Again, you're not deleting it. You're just telling it to neglect it. Forget that it's there. Is it hidden below the surface? Sure. So after you hit a certain number of miles, it's going to get that much slower to be able to write data to it.
Yeah.
Why your phone slow down, why your computer slow down over time. After you've done so many read-write cycles, it starts to deteriorate. But could you dive deep in there and pull it out? Yeah, that's the scary part.
Yeah, I mean, my first kind of awareness of this whole space probably is like when you hear about a plane crash and then they're trying to get the black box and they're trying to, it was in an accident and it was in a fire, but they're still able to like capture what the pilot's like last words were and stuff like that. So this data is pretty resilient. And so you guys have a process. I'm looking at these bricks that you brought in, and we got to figure out what to do with these because they could make some pretty neat paperweights.
Oh, yeah.
But this, why don't you talk a little bit about the process? We know that, unbeknownst to us, we're leaving a lot of our data out there, and it's vulnerable if we're not discarding it properly. What are you guys doing to make sure that it's not retrievable?
Yeah, so Rishi goes and picks this up from whatever customer needs us to collect their electronic waste. And then we sit there and we take the hard drive apart, and you see in the stages here, right? So you go from this box to what's inside, and that disk now is the data. And then we take this and we melt them into bricks. So no one can ever go back and pull.
No, there's no way to get this brick and find the data out of there.
Not without millions of dollars and the FBI helping you.
Wait, so if you had the resources, you could get data out of it in this state?
Theoretically, yes, but it would never be worth anyone's time.
Okay.
Because at that
I'm
point,
looking
at a brick,
it wouldn't be worth the cost. You know what I mean?
No.
The contact list that you're getting,
and it would be
isn't worth it at
fragments
that
of
point.
data, so you really couldn't
Mixed
piece
with all
together what
kinds
it
of-
is. Yeah.
Basically, you give us your entire office worth of computers.
Yeah.
It's all aggregated in.
And for
one brick.
for the uneducated, is the data magnetic? You said don't put your phone close to it. Like, what does magnetism have to do with files and storage?
So the magnetism isn't for the files and the storage. It's actually for this little device here. It's a reader.
What is that?
So this is the reader.
Okay.
That's what reads the data.
Think
That's
about it like a
on it.
record player. Right?
Okay, like a
Yeah.
needle.
So this will move back and forth based on some controls here, and this magnet keeping it moving, and it's got a swivel, and then this is on a rotation as well. So it's reading that, like you said, exactly like a record player.
Very cool, very cool. Well, guys, this is an amazing business. Can't wait to hear how you guys started it, and hopefully you'll share a little bit of background on how you guys met right after these words.
Do you need printing done on time and for a good price? From posters to embroidery, business cards and booklets, and everything in between. For the best printing, check out my boy Harry, our partners over at Minuteman Press of Shelton. High quality products, timely service, competitive prices. You can expect these and more when you partner with Minuteman Press for your design, printing, and marketing needs. For more information, visit shelton.minutemanpress.com and mention Peralta Design's Mission Control podcast for an extra 10% off your next order.
3, 2, 1, 1.
Launch Brands.
And we're back. Please help me once again to welcome Joe Perun and Rishi Patel, co-founders of National E-Waste Services. The fans are going wild.
Thank you. Whew.
Yeah,
Didn't know we had
camped
that
out.
many.
Yeah, they heard you were coming, and they knew that you were bringing donuts too.
Yeah.
Your favorite.
Oh, hey, I'm on a diet.
I know. We didn't know that. We should have texted beforehand. I used to be a nutritionist.
No. Shout out
What
to
a-
What a
terrible.
career shift, nutritionist to e-waste.
I've done so many careers. You have no
We
idea.
got to hear about this. We got to hear about guys. You are in the secure data destruction business. We just kind of beat these bricks to a pulp in our first segment, just talking about how much data is out there. It sounds like, I don't know why more of these companies don't exist, but I'd love to. I'm fascinated, first of all, to learn more how did you guys come up with this idea, and how you guys met and how you guys started this business? Tell us your story.
So I just want to backtrack real quick. There are other companies that will take your electronic waste,
Yeah.
but not every company will do what we're doing with the data.
Securely destroy it.
Yes.
Yeah. They'll take it.
They'll take it. They
But
might
you
be
never
making
know. It
money
might
with it.
get resold.
We don't know what
somewhere
they're doing
fully
with it.
intact.
Yeah.
It could go anywhere.
It could be on its way to Russia, for all we know.
We get 5 to 10 solicitations every day from Chinese companies, Russian companies, asking to just buy the full pieces, offering pretty solid money on top of that for very old computers.
Bastards.
But we don't even respond.
No.
We don't like.
No.
Is a lot of the money there in just in component resale? Like, hey, I can break down this machine into
You
all its
think.
individual parts.
I think that's a good point, because I think a lot of us have been indoctrinated into this. I'm donating it.
Yeah.
You know, there are countries that could use our, you know, this old computer or this old phone to me is somebody else's, you know, future.
Yeah.
But it's like you're giving all your data away at the same time.
At least pull the hard drive.
Yeah.
Please.
Who does that?
Just at
Who
least
even
pull the
thinks
hard
of
drive.
that? I'm in this. You know, I use technology, and I have never really occurred. You know, it hasn't really occurred to me that how many times have I gotten rid of a device and not taken the hard drive out? I don't think I've ever have.
Yeah. No,
It's pretty scary.
it is.
And
It is.
refurbish and third world sales is a huge part of the tech
Huge.
industry.
Huge. I knew one of my frat brothers worked for IBM, and his whole career was like taking old IBM computers and reselling them in China.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine like how much data was on these machines, and whether or not they were wiped, or whether they were, you know, hard drives were removed. I mean, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
And we don't want to say everybody's a criminal, right? The goal.
But there are some bad actors out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
You know, the key here is just kind of protect, right? Protect your identity, protect your data, or at least I'm assuming there's an aspect to your business, guys, that's educational. Because I mean, it's just the first step. I think is just raising awareness around. Do you know how much data is at risk?
Yeah. And that brings us kind of full circle to talk about the start of the company. Right?
Yeah, let's do it.
So Rishi and I actually met networking, right? I don't even know how many years ago now. And
I think 19,
yeah,
2019.
something like that. And
Pre-COVID.
Oh yeah, pre-COVID.
Yeah, pre-COVID. And, you know, networking, it leads to great opportunities. And I'll put that out there for any business person listening
Absolutely.
right now. Because that's what you guys do, right? Is help build businesses. So we got to know each other after seeing each other several times, you know, networking, and realized that we, you know.
By the way, you both have admirable facial hair. Just want to put that out there for the YouTube viewers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a story behind that we can get into later.
Probably more interesting. So we can switch gears. Guys, we're going to talk about facial hair. for the
Mine's
rest
just
of the show.
laziness and the cost of razors. His is admirable. Mine
No,
not so much.
you can tell he's putting some time into that with the curl, the Raleigh fingers mustache,
yeah, a
handlebar
little.
mustache.
a little.
Channeling
So
some snidely whiplash. It's dated myself.
When he's thinking, is he like twirling his mustache or?
Well, my big thing for him is he's a career banker. He's like basically a young, hot Monopoly man. That's what he's going for. Yeah.
Wait, so
Like, he's the face of the
If they
company.
made a movie, he could play the young
Exactly.
Monopoly man.
Yeah.
Right. How he made his riches.
Yeah.
In e-waste.
anyways,
I've never paid for parking near him.
oh man.
All right. So you guys met. It was love at
Yeah.
first sight. And
Yeah.
then what happened?
Sorry, that's no. So as we got to know each other, right? So I had been entrepreneur at heart, right?
Mhm.
He already said it. I'm a banker. That's what I do as my day job, right? So I know a lot about business, and I've always been kind of trying to find that passion of what it is that I want to do for business. And one of the things that I was doing for a while was storage locker cleanouts, right? So I'd go and I'd take all the contents out, and I ended up with, unfortunately, a lot of things, right? A lot of paperwork that was vital to these individuals.
Wasn't there a show about this?
Storage Wars.
Storage
yeah,
Wars.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did
So
that inspire you to do it?
it was fun to watch, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Let me go see what this is all about." And then the next thing you know, I'm down that rabbit hole. And so we were doing this, and I brought him along on one of the times I went, and the computers were just stacking up. Because like the papers I would give back to the place. Like if I got a social security card, I give it back. Again, I'm a banker, so I'm thinking about this sensitive information.
Yeah.
So we were looking at these computers and all this electronics, and we're like, what can we do with this, right? And thinking about the components that are inside of it, right? You guys mentioned the precious metals. We're like, well, maybe that's an avenue. And we spent a solid year doing R&D. And there's harsh chemicals that these companies use to extract that stuff. But as we were doing this, we saw a need, right? Because we were like, well, minus all these other components like you had talked about, we have something in here that has this person's pictures, social
browser history.
Browser history. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah. Right. Didn't clear when you hit clear.
Clear cache.
Yeah. No. So
the things we've found. In these units.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So we ended up hooking up. Rishi and I ended up hooking up with an MSP, a managed service provider, after we had spent some time kind of researching this, and they gave us an opportunity to work with them and their clients. And what we found was that some of the components were still making their way into the garbage. Mm-hmm. And what our focus was twofold, is to make sure the data doesn't, but also that all of the components that can be properly recycled end up getting recycled. Because after seeing the chemical component of it and everything.
Right. So this is green, if you will.
Green. Yep.
Oh,
Absolutely.
if you think you needed a ventilator after COVID, you have not worked with these chemicals. I still don't think I breathe right.
Oh, man. Is that what happened? No. No. Oh, man. Yeah. So, and then you guys are doing R&D. You're learning about how to make it green. But were you guys both, how did you guys figure out that you wanted to go into business together?
So we already had a few other businesses together.
Okay.
That's how we met. Was we were going to do a joint venture on a gym in Long Island.
Okay.
I'm not kidding you. 2 weeks before COVID struck.
So you're about to sign the lease on a gym in Long Island, and then COVID hits.
Yeah, we said, let's think about this for just a couple weeks. Let's see how it goes. A month goes by, 2 months go by, 3 months go by, and we just think, wow, we would have just lost $100,000 just in the rent, because rent was $35,000, plus whatever we would have paid for the business, plus the operations, and we dodged a bullet there.
Wow!
But we loved working together. He is an amazing banker, so we figured
that is true.
Yeah,
that's how I know.
I mean, he's everyone's banker in this whole building,
right? But and we go way back to the People's days.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also kind of ventured out. You've tried. You were here, then you were in Waterbury. You've moved branches, meaning bank branches,
yes,
not trees.
Well, I do that too.
Yeah, he's done that too. But you were into fitness too during this time. I remember we would have conversations about that, and you guys were both figuring out. You have like an entrepreneur background.
Yeah, I would say
you
so.
Studied.
I studied, but I also grew up in the back of my parents' store.
Patel.
Yeah.
Just being a Patel, you're like, it's in your DNA.
Well, immigrant family. I'm first generation born here. Pretty much a month after I was born, I was on the counter of my parents' convenience store.
No child labor laws. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I was like a cute little add-on. You can, get people to buy a few more things.
Oh, man. So are they proud of you?
I'm Indian, so no.
You could never be good enough.
No, of course not.
You're not a doctor?
Well, not to me. They're proud when it comes to anyone else. As long as I'm not in the room, they're saying amazing things about me.
That's how it works.
Yeah. The second I'm in there, nope.
Man, so you guys figured this out and decided e-waste is the way to go. I mean, what does the R&D show? That there's money to be made, or is that there is a high demand, or is it just like one of those businesses that has a high margin?
So what the R&D showed was the need for the service, because while there are services that will take the electronic waste, there aren't the ones that are sitting there saying, we're going to give you the secured destruction. And we took it up a notch where a business like an MSP,
Yeah.
right? Managed service provider. They'll come in, they'll replace your computers for you, right? They take care of the hardware and the software, and they'll do some back end management, right? Well, when they take this, they may want what's called a certificate of destruction. And it's funny because the first time
Heard of that.
the first time I heard of it, he was
Yeah.
talking with somebody and they're like COD, and I'm like, cash on delivery. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, certificate of destruction. I'm
I
like,
thought Call of Duty, but you know.
I think that's what Jorge thought too.
right? So the certificate of destruction will allow, so depending upon what business you're in, right? Manufacturing, if they're manufacturing for the government, they probably need a COD to show that whatever components they had that might have the blueprints,
Right.
the Black Hawk,
Secrets.
right? Or exactly, that it's not out there, that somebody's not going to be able to get it and be like, oh, here's the chink in the armor. Here's the way for me to get in. Here's, access to their entire network, whatever it may be.
So they kind of remove that liability because they say, hey, we have the certificate of destruction. There's no way anyone could have gotten that data.
At least from the physical,
Right.
right? What we do have to say is we have no control
Over
over
the cloud.
The cloud.
The
Yeah.
cloud,
right?
whatever your own network practices
Cloud,
were, but on
corporate
this-
espionage, that's not us.
Yeah.
Right.
I just had this visual of back in the day, they would tell you like make sure you shred everything because there are people that like are stealing your garbage to go through it and find your mail. This is on another level.
Yeah.
There, if people are going places where there's discarded computers, storage lockers, landfills, it's just on another level because there's more data obviously on a hard drive than in a bag of garbage.
Oh, absolutely. You can have years and years worth
photos,
of data. Yeah.
probably damaging content. Not to mention, what's some of the crimes that somebody like identity theft? Are we talking?
Identity theft, blackmail, right?
Yeah.
It could be done if somebody's like, well, hey, I have
I
those
have this.
inappropriate photos
Right.
that you don't want, or your browser history.
Yeah,
So
and you're an upstanding citizen, but
Think about, there's so many ways that you could leverage that against somebody.
Yeah.
And I'm so curious to know how you guys figured out like the nuts and bolts of this. Like, what does
Yeah.
what does it mean to say? What kind of facility do you need to melt something down like that? Do you guys have like a box truck, a pickup? Like, how did all that, the nuts and bolts of the business?
I
come
like
together?
how you described it to me though. So you just go home and just start burning stuff. I'm like, that's pretty high tech.
yeah, it's actually a little
That's
bit of
how we
both.
started.
right?
Where's
Yeah.
Dad? Oh, he's in the yard, lighting things on fire. He's
Keep
working.
it warm. Keep it warm. It's getting cold, right? We're getting
Making
into winter.
marshmallows off of the. You probably get some chemicals on it.
You might not want to do that, yeah. But you could definitely melt some other stuff with it for sure. So we ended up, we'll bring if somebody wants like a container or receptacle,
Yeah.
right? And they can fill it up, and then we'll come and we'll pick it up. And we'll either pick it up with, we usually try to stay as unmarked as possible.
Yeah.
I know that sounds really backwards, right? Everybody wants to be branded
Discreet.
everywhere.
You're discreet.
Yeah. So when we're showing up, most people don't know that what we're there for. Not
We don't
like
wear these shirts to that.
Yeah.
We come in plain clothes.
Right.
These are just for
Networking.
marketing. Yeah,
Yeah.
networking.
and it's not like we're trying to be like, super secretive, but
You're
just
kind of like the Men in Black. Like when these guys show up, everything's getting erased.
we got
Yeah.
the thing too, right?
Yeah.
Your memory. And
That's a good market. You guys wear black suits
But
on.
what a great
sunglasses.
marketing tchotchke to be able to do that. You know what I
Right?
mean? To have, you guys could do a whole commercial with but we
Oh,
did
I could-
hire a hypnotist to come in too.
if I could melt on spot, that would be great. But no. So then we take it back, and we have a facility that is
Yeah.
secure, right?
Yeah.
And it's just the two of us that have access to it. And we'll take the time and we go through and we break everything down to the point of we have a whole tower that gets taken apart, and then we take that out, and then those discs will get cut so they're smaller, and they go into a crucible, and the crucible goes into a smelter, and then within 30 minutes 100 hard drives are melted like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now,
And turned into.
and turned into a brick.
Turned into a brick.
I mean, we got to figure out what to do with those because
Right. Then what's the disposal part at that point? What happens to those?
So what we do from this point is you can either have it back as a brick, so you're in control of your data at all times. You don't have to worry about what happened. You have it.
Yeah.
Or we can CNC your company's logo, make you a nice paperweight. throw it
Build
up
a
on shelf.
pyramid.
Yeah, build a pyramid.
There you go. They're going to be years from now. how did they do this? Now, what I really wanted to do, all honesty,
Yeah.
is I wanted to figure out a way to make them into like little Lego molds and then build like a house out of, metal, right? It's aluminum mostly, so it's not like it's super precious metal.
Now, yeah, so could this be recycled now if you brought this to like a recycling plant?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
It could turn into a park bench for all you know.
So that's good. I mean, at least it's, you can see what the life cycle is, right? Now, with your entrepreneurial background, your banker background, and for our listeners out there that have an idea that don't know how to execute, what was the process like of creating a business plan for this? Like, how do you figure out what do you charge, and how many customers do you need to break even? Like, what does that all look like? Because it's not exactly a traditional type business. You're not creating something; you're actually destroying something as a service.
Right. That's where the time of research and development also went in. Right. Yeah. As you said, my banking background allowed for us to maybe not need to go to some of the avenues that some people would need to in order to figure out business and how to create a business and everything else, along with Rishi's background, in schooling and everything. Mm-hmm. So I was very comfortable on establishing the business. State's website was pretty easy. If somebody really wanted to do it, they can go on and they can do it themselves. They don't need to go to, some website and pay $350 or $1,000. You can do it yourself, and it's relatively inexpensive, like $150. And next thing you know, you have a business, and then you go and establish an EIN number. Yep. And we did all of that. And then from there, the research and development part of breaking it down was to understand time, because at that point, that's how we.
That's the currency.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
there was no research we could do. The only data on this is whatever we ourselves have done, and just sitting there clocking how long it takes to pull it apart, how long it takes to smelt something down, what chemicals are involved, what materials you need, all the logistics of it, we had to do ourselves. From that, I was able to create a feasibility analysis. That's what let us kind of move forward and change directions and see what avenues we need to go down and which ones are just dead ends.
Right.
But we had to start from zero because this wasn't an industry.
Right.
Secured data destruction was never a thing.
Yeah, I feel like with your name, you could almost franchise this or create a system that then you could license, or a process that you could license. Is that something like what's the future? What do you see in the future for this business?
Well, that could be the goal. We'd like to open up more locations, but we have to first create a vetting process for anyone that we're going to bring on, just because the nature of the business, we would probably end up working with some sort of government contractor at some point. So you can't just have anybody go in. That would go against, DOJ, DOD guidelines, NIST guidelines, all of that. So
yeah, there's a lot of trust here involved, because like somebody hires you and you're like, okay, you're driving off with your hard drives. How do I know when you come back with the brick that was my hard drive?
Exactly.
How?
At that point, you just said it. The trust is what ends up happening. Unless they literally came with us, watched us take it apart, and then watch it go into the smelter. Because on the drive itself, there's no indicator. The best that can be done, and this is where we give the certificate of destruction, we can take the serial number, we can take the reference information off of the hard drive.
So take me through that process, and I give you come by, I give you a few phones, I give you an old iMac, you drive away, you guys go smelt it, and then how do you close the loop? Do you come back, or do you mail me that certificate?
So if someone wants just proof, they don't want a certificate, they just want receipt, it would be an email, generally after the process is done. So you guys were just at Schmoozapalooza, right?
Shout out to Greater Valley Chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we did there is we offered a free pickup, right? So anybody that wanted to bring them. And when they were given to us, we basically just said to them, do you want receipt of destruction? So not certificate, but receipt, just saying it was destroyed. And that was a quick, simple email. 2 out of the 6 said yes. The other few were like, no, we researched the business. We're good with it. You're here with the chamber. So we were vetted by the company, right? Both our company and the company that we were with. of the chamber.
Right. Like kind of leveraging their brand and trust
Correct.
against yours.
Correct.
And what's been your marketing strategy thus far?
That's where we're hitting the ground now.
Pretty much so far, everything's been referral based.
Word of mouth.
Yeah.
We're working on right now. We've just set up an Instagram. Only so much as to have national e-waste services. There's a picture of our logo and a link to a YouTube video.
You're on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Establishing a digital footprint.
Yeah.
We're very on the fence about how much we want to advertise, just because part of the nature of the business is to kind of keep it.
Yeah.
Well,
I think if I were you guys, I would probably, and Jorge, you can chime in maybe more on the technical side, but like the closest cousin I can think of this would be like a shredder service.
Right.
And kind of
I
model
wonder
how
if-
they do it.
Do you guys see shredder services offering these services as well?
So shredder services don't give necessarily the certificate of destruction, but I do know that they will shred a hard drive, right? If you pay for it.
Right.
And that's where we come in on the difference, right? Is our cost and our process better, right? If somebody likes that, if they like us and they want to work with us. So they do offer similar, but not every company, right? Because in order to put that through a shredder, it takes a beating on that equipment, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking of those.
I remember
big
trying
jaw
to
things.
destroy one just by like throwing it like up in the air, letting it hit the concrete, and like this thing is just robust. Like you'd be surprised at like how much damage it can take.
Yeah.
That's what it's designed for.
Right.
Yeah, we had a couple that we just picked up recently from an MSP that the company that they picked it up from said, well, we want you to destroy the hard drives. So we went out back with a sledgehammer and beat the heck out of these things. But again, to that point, when we got them, I took the top off and the platter is not even
Not
scuffed.
much more damage than this one.
Wow.
So it's like
You
it
see
was
the chips and the little dents. It wasn't much more than this one.
Yeah. So not to say, I don't know who would or could reclaim that, right? I'm sure somebody, as we talked about it, would go through that process if they knew where it came from and it was worth it to them, right? But these are pretty solid pieces. So that's again where we wanted to go through the process the way we do, and we're using far less energy to do what we do, right? We're taking it apart with a little electric screwdriver.
And so, what's the plan for scaling? We talked about franchise, but let's say this thing just starts blowing up and you start getting like, are you guys planning on hiring more staff? Like what do you think can happen?
Yeah. So the thought on the taking on more staff would definitely be on components. So the hard drives would get pulled, the staff members would then have access to the rest of the computer, because on the rest of the computer, there's nothing that's going to be damaging, right? But anything that's sensitive stays under lock and key where only we get it, right? And then we have inside the facility, we have a separate locked facility that stores just sensitive information. And then we have all the other components. And I wanted to talk about that a little bit because we did touch upon it. There are potential components in there that can be beneficial in a resale capacity. And I say that because, again, it doesn't contain sensitive data, but it also then means less energy to produce the same thing. So again, when we talk green, right? Because that is ethics and green are the two things we really are striving for with this company. That when we talk about maybe like a CPU, that's the computing unit inside of it, right? It's not containing data, but it has the ability to run the computer. Well, if we can find a market for that, instead of them now needing to go and rebuild the same thing they were going to anyways, we put so much less emission out there, so much less of a carbon footprint out there.
Right. I love it. I think my recommendation would be following the golden content ratio as you guys continue to market and grow. And that is 50% of your content, as you wonder what to put out on this Instagram that you guys established, is education, educating people, and also the transparency in your process, like yelling it on a mountaintop. How do you guys, you almost see like a Candyland kind of map of what happens to your hard drive once we get it. What do we do with it? Where does it go? What do you get back? You get the certificate, everybody's happy. But I just think a lot of people don't know what happens.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going to know you guys as you guys get bigger, right? That trust that you talk about. Yes, locally, you guys are seeing success because people know you, they recognize you, they've seen you. But as you start getting more and more clients, the transparency and the education and the content that you're putting out is going to really matter to make this really be clear and transparent what you guys are doing. Like, how does this happen? Because I think that's, once you get that, I think more and more people are going to be telling their cousin and their brother and their coworkers, and did you know there's a company that does this? I just had all my stuff, grandpa just passed away. We took all his devices and we sent it, but that's going to take time. And so I think focusing on educating people on this is huge, because for many, this is a brand new concept.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the whole industry is kind of in its infancy stage because we've never had a situation where data was this valuable before.
Yes, absolutely. Data is the new currency.
Yeah.
Bad guys want it. You got to be careful with it, right? You can't be careless. And everybody wants to give back too. Like, so we're donating things to Goodwill, and it's like entire machines are going to Goodwill with all your data on it. And
Yeah.
I just don't think people know.
No.
They're just they mean well, but they're you're putting you're exposing your information.
Yeah. And when you talk about that, think about like some of the companies like nonprofits
Right.
that have information. So that's one that we've been trying to work with, right?
Yeah.
Because again, giving back is one of the things that we're looking to do.
Social causes. Yes.
Yeah. And those nonprofits that now have all this data. So we work with them and we do it on more of a donation basis.
That's awesome.
Right. So
That's awesome.
it's to focus on, making sure, again, nobody ever gets this information.
Yeah.
We don't want somebody's social, their address, date of birth, how much they make, And you mentioned about the emails, and how everybody's collecting them. Piece of advice 3. 1 for work, 1 for personal, and 1 to put on all those papers that is just junk.
Okay, that's great advice. Great advice. And change your passwords often.
Yes.
Right.
And don't make it password.
And don't reuse the same password. I have so many.
Yeah.
As soon as your data gets breached, as soon as you get that letter, somebody somewhere has your email and password.
Mhm.
And if you use that same password on all of your accounts, they have access to all of your properties. So make sure you use distinct passwords for every platform.
So guys, how can, it sounds like you can service anyone, from the individual to the corporation to the nonprofit, right? So kind of anybody could not be your client. Or are you guys open to receiving equipment from anyone?
We are 100% open to receiving for anyone. We definitely fall into, when you say niche industries, attorneys. We had an attorney that we had evidence. It was literally labeled with evidence stickers on the PC, and then all of their clients. So attorneys are the ideal clients. Banks, funny enough, right? Banks, because they have all of your financial data. And then, at the end of the day, when we talk about it, truthfully, anybody. I hate to use
Medical
that term.
offices,
Police
HR
departments.
police departments, the state,
Absolutely.
even marketing firms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So guys, and how can, if folks want to contact you or want to hire you, what's the best way for them to find you?
nationalewasteservices.com, and you can always email us at info@nationalewasteservices.com.
Okay, guys, great episode, great education. We're in scary times, but there's a way to protect yourself by getting rid of your data in the proper way, by contacting National E-Waste Services, Secure Data Destruction Service.
The only news you can trust.
The only news you can trust. Everything that's fit to print. Guys, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for the donuts.
Thank you for having us.
Of course.
We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and we wish you nothing but success. It definitely sounds like a great business, and I can see this going nationwide.
Oh, that is the
We
goal.
planned for that in the name.
Absolutely. Think big.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, thank you for listening to this episode of Mission Control. Until next time, this is your host, Ramon Peralta with Peralta Design, and we launch brands.